Well, let's bring you now the reaction from Brussels. We're going to talk to our correspondent who joins us from there, Dave Keating. Dave, no full results so far, but it's not looking that promising necessarily, is it, for the pro-Western side?
I mean, undoubtedly, this is bad news, whether it ends up being a very close victory for the yes camp or a complete loss. The tightness of this is quite uncomfortable. Now, the latest information we're getting is that yes may have just squeaked by a majority with 50.2%. That's according to reports we've just seen. We'll see if that holds. But, you know, just as a matter of comparison, if 50.2% yes in Moldova accurately reflects Moldovan public opinion, it would mean that more people in the UK, a higher proportion, want to join the EU than in Moldova. And we know from the EU, from talks that they've been having with this whole reset, that the EU side has said that proportion of support for the UK rejoining the EU is nowhere near enough, that they would need to see something like 70%. So questions will be raised whether they can go forward in Moldova with such a small percent. However, the Moldovan president, Maia Sandu, has said that a slim majority is not due to an accurate reflection of public opinion, but rather unprecedented Russian meddling in this vote, which has even seen allegations of vote buying. There have been media reports of finding people on the ground saying that they had been paid to vote no against this referendum, which would enshrine Moldova's path into the EU in the constitution, saying that Moldova would join by 2030. Of course, that's also a decision to be taken by the EU. Moldova was invited to join the EU by EU leaders back in December. And then separately, of course, you have the presidential result. Also pretty bad news for the EU, for that pro-EU president, Maia Sandu, who was not able to secure a majority. The pro-Kremlin opposition candidate looks like they got 22%. And so there's going to have to be a runoff in that election. Analysts say she still has a pretty good chance of still winning that runoff, but again, she wasn't expected to have to face a runoff. So this is worrying results, I think, both for the result itself, but also for the degree to which Russia allegedly was able to meddle in this vote.
Dave, we've got another big hurdle coming up as well, haven't we? There are parliamentary elections in Georgia this coming weekend.
Yeah, this is also a bad sign for that election happening in Georgia in 1 week, because we've seen the same allegations of Russian meddling there. So you have the ruling Georgian Dream Party, which has drifted closer and closer to the Kremlin in recent years, copying Kremlin legislation, for instance, the so-called foreign agents law. Now, Georgia was invited to join the EU at the same time as Moldova and Ukraine back in December. But since then, those accession talks have been frozen because the Georgian government passed this Russia-style foreign agents law, and also 120 million euros of EU funds for accession countries have also been withheld from Georgia because of that. So this election is really going to be pivotal. It will determine whether that pro-Kremlin Georgia Dream Party remains in power, or whether citizens will, fearing that the Georgian Dream is going to take them away from that European future, whether they will vote them out. There are further tools that the EU can use. So they've already withheld that money, but the Commission has said that the next step could be taking away the visa liberalization privileges that Georgia had been given, and requiring, once again, Georgian citizens to get a visa if they want to come to the EU as tourists. So depending on the result of that election, the EU may take further action to show that the path that Georgia is taking, at least that the government is taking it away from that EU future. Another pivotal election, another election where reportedly there has been intense Russian interference, and of course the degree to which that seems to have worked. And this Moldovan election will have people very worried about next week's election in Georgia.
Dave, thanks very much. Dave Keating, our correspondent in Brussels. Of course, we'll continue to talk to Dave over the coming week as that Georgian election draws closer as well.